Wow. I just realized this is my 10th review video. Happy 10th video anniversary! So what should I do to mark this occasion? Oh, I know! Another review! Woo! Just start the thing. On our Jedi Knight timeline, we've reached an area where LucasArts entered what we can call the Dark Ages. Anyone else remember that period before World War II games got real popular and we were getting sick of recreating the battles of Hoth and Endor? Yeah, this is that period. Apart from the Star Wars trilogy arcade rail shooter game thing, it was subpar game after subpar game. And the massive disappointment of the Phantom Menace didn't help matters. I lost track of how many pod racing games came out after that. Thankfully, the Jedi Knight series was sort of a refugee from this dark period, but it lost the Dark Forces tag in the process. Still, I guess that's better than saying Star Wars Dark Forces 3 Jedi Knight 2. The development changed hands from LucasArts to Raven Software, makers of Hexen and the surprisingly fun Star Trek Elite Force. As the opening text scroll informs us, after the end of Mysteries of the Sith, Kyle gave up the way of the Jedi because he was afraid of falling to the dark side. Yes, our brave hero who has helped save the galaxy twice now is too scared of becoming a bad guy, so he just gives up. Brilliant. Not having a lightsaber or magic powers doesn't stop him from being a badass, though. Kyle and his partner Jan have gone back to their mercenary roots for the Republic, taking out entire Imperial bases on their own. Following rumors of Imperial experiments and the Valley of the Jedi, Kyle and Jan bust up an Imperial mine only to get ambushed by this lizardy fellow, Dasan.
You look like nothing more than a bantha herder.
Well, you look like an overgrown Kowakian monkey lizard, so I guess looks don't count for much. Hand her over.
You desire this woman? Come, take her.
Yeah, I want to bet Kyle regrets giving up the lightsaber right about now. I have to admit, it took me a while to realize this was a supposed-to-lose battle, because I kept reloading my quicksave every time my health got too low. Kyle goes down and Dasan orders his apprentice to execute Jan, sending Kyle into a fit of rage.
You want a worthy adversary? I'll give you a worthy adversary.
Rincewind. Oh, right! I haven't talked about Jan Ors yet. Sorry about that. I guess I forgot about her since this is the first time she's been relevant to the plot. Jan was the rebel agent who turned Kyle into one of the good guys during Soldier for the Empire, when she brought him proof it was the Empire who killed his father, not the rebels as he had been led to believe. She basically acted as his pilot and intel officer for the first two games.
What would you do without me, Kyle?
I'd be a content old man.
And she ended up getting kidnapped at least once in both games, so she got to fill the damsel in distress role too. Up until now, she's been largely a background character, and this is really the only time she's appeared to be competent at anything besides flying you to the next level. Anyway, Kyle heads back to the Valley of the Jedi to restore his connection to the Force. This turns out to be a major mistake, as Dasan follows him and takes the valley for himself. Nice job, Katarn. You nullified the entire last game in the first hour of gameplay. You gotta love that Dasan shows up literally seconds after Kyle leaves. A little stalling on Kyle's part, and the game might have been a lot shorter. Kyle gets his lightsaber back after a little force power tutorial, and the game is officially off and running as he starts tracking down Dasan and stop his reborn project. The shooting is a bit wonkier this time around, thanks to a mix of enemy AI and the weapons themselves. Jedi Outcast seems to have an always-on auto-aim system, which sometimes helps hit an enemy, but it more or less gets the crosshair stuck in the enemy's general area, making precise hits and headshots trickier. And maybe it's just me, but the AI likes to make enemies run around too much. Not really taking cover or flanking, but just running around a lot. You don't really get hit because, hey, they're stormtroopers. But trying to hit moving targets with a dodgy aim system makes the gunplay weaker than it should be. Thankfully, Raven Software made a major improvement on the last Jedi Knight game, and focused a lot more of the combat on the lightsaber fights. Better animations and more fluid character movement make the fights flow incredibly well, and it's still fun to play today. You can switch between different lightsaber forms, giving you different attacks and fighting styles. Combined with cannon fodder Dark Jedi to slice up, it's probably the most entertaining part of the game. And if you suck at it, you can just stand near an enemy and use your saber like a spear. The action is pretty slow at the start of the game. For the first batch of levels, Kyle is without the Force or his lightsaber again, and it drags more than it should. Once you have the Force again, you have the basic powers, but they're all stunted and weak. We're even throughout the RPG aspect of points and picking favorite powers from the last game, and now your powers all grow over time, which feels a bit lazy but removes the risk of investing in a crappy power you barely use. Sadly, your Force powers are cheapened when you're mostly using them to solve rather obvious puzzles. The only thing worse than that is the level design. A lot of the time you'll end up lost, just trying to figure out where the game wants you to go, or throwing a bunch of tricky jumping puzzles in your path. You know what the sad part is? I was going the wrong way that whole time. Jedi Outcast has some of the worst level design I've ever seen in a game. A lot of the time you're just trying to figure out how to open a door, get out of a room, or trying to figure out where you should be going next. And who the hell would design a room like this? Still, the Force powers themselves are as awesome as they should be. Nothing beats clearing out a room with lightning or choking the last standing stormtrooper Vader style. Because there's no moral choices to be made in the game, you get most of the fun powers from the last game and can use them without penalty. Which is cool, but it still feels a bit wrong that there's no light side versus dark side feel to the game. Kyle nearly has an evil moment when he catches Desan's apprentice Tavion and decides to choke a bitch. But then he decides to just wimp out and let her go. Yeah, I'm sure that won't come back to bite him in the ass later. Also, is it just me or does her outfit look like some sort of goth Mardi Gras costume? The plot of the first Jedi Knight game was quite good overall, but I think Outcast feels more like a real Star Wars story. This is probably helped by the locations and character cameos. Billy D. Williams and Mark Hamill were kind enough to lend their voices to their Star Wars counterparts.
I sensed a disturbance in the Force. I'll tell you about Desan while your trial is being prepared.
Trial?
Al-Qatan?
Lando, what are you doing here?
What does it look like I'm doing? I'm sitting in a cell.
This plot has loss, betrayal, revenge, and redemption. The last game was all about a race for a magical MacGuffin. It's also pretty clever how the player may think the title Jedi Outcast applies to Kyle, but it's really referencing Desan. This brings me up to my only real nitpick in the plot. Desan, our main villain, has no character development at all. Skywalker gives us Desan's entire backstory in a cutscene exposition dump. Desan tries to get his revenge, and then he dies. Not exactly an epic arc there. It's also kind of weird that his plan for ultimate power involves making an already strong fighter return to his Jedi warrior ways. Desan actually makes Jarek look like a credible villain.
Excellent!
I complained about the old, outdated graphics of the original Jedi Knight, but that's mostly because everything was so blocky. Jedi Knight 2 has better graphics overall, and still looks pretty good, if only because the characters look like living creatures and not stacked blocks. Instead of opting for FMV like the last game, the cutscenes are rendered in-game. And overall the voice acting is pretty solid, but facial animation was still a new art at the time, so while they're talking, characters are doing weird lip flaps and sneers. Overall, Jedi Knight 2 has some hiccups and pacing issues, but at its worst moments it's on par with the original, and it surpasses the original Jedi Knight with better force powers and lightsaber fighting mechanics. And that's basically the end of Jedi Knight. LucasArts has never even dropped a hint of a Jedi Knight 3, which is strange considering it's one of their more successful franchises. Maybe that's their true legacy, creating beloved games and then letting other people take them over. Then again, it's not like the story is left with a lot of dangling plot threads, and Kyle's story is wrapped up pretty nicely by the end. The most we could hope for was a spin-off, and that's what we got. Join us next time for Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, or as I like to call it, Star Wars The Fanservice Menace. Wow. I just realized this is my 10th review video.
You should have tried harder!